Good. How are you, Leighton?
I'm doing well. Welcome back. It's been a while.
It has been. It's been like over 2 years, I think.
Darn. So, what's new in your world?
Uh, in the past 2 years, everything's the same. No, I, there's a lot, man, a lot. I'm trying to remember what I was doing. I mean, so 2 years ago, I was living in a fifth wheel on the farm, just doing my thing, blowing up that greenhouse. And now I live in a very nice home. I'm not working on that project anymore. I have pivoted to doing consulting work for the most part, and I'm helping write license applications for different companies out east mostly. Um, Also writing like SOPs and stuff like that, just all living soil stuff, helping people set up living soil facilities out east. And that's pretty much my main hustle these days. And I'm still doing my seed stuff, doing seed breeding on a very small scale, just here at my house in my shop in the back. And I'm going to be starting my next tent series where I'll be going through how I do my breeding, and like the processes of like pollination and stuff like that. My cat loves to jump on my plants.
Well, if you can't tell, my dogs love to be with me.
Yeah, right. But yeah, now I have a bunch of sponsors on social media where I just they send me stuff and I try their stuff, and there's been a couple where I've had to just deny taking their sponsorship, that I didn't like their products, where I tried them and they weren't the hype that they were supposed to be. And if I just try to maintain like integrity with endorsing different things and stuff like that. But it's really nice to just have to, or just grow and have people want me to use their things in exchange for using their things on social media. That's pretty fun. But life is pretty like laid back, relaxed, I just kind of hang out here, do my consulting work stuff. I do some like small scale things with like people in tents or like in their, like their personal grows or like medical grows. And also I'm doing like, kind of mid-tier stuff for like outdoor farms in like the Humboldt area. And then I'm doing like large scale stuff for living soil facilities on the East Coast that are trying to get started up. And that is a grueling process. But things are good. Life is good.
So, beta testing products like microbials or bugs in a jug or something else?
I mean, people will like send me their concoctions of tinctures or ferments of different inputs and stuff, and everyone makes claims, and then like I'll try them out and see if it's something that I want to endorse, and if it's like worth trying or like worth endorsing. And there's been quite a few where I'm like, okay, I try it, then I'm like, this doesn't do anything, or at least it doesn't in my soil system, because sometimes like I feel like the efficacy and value of products is really going to depend on whether or not your soil actually needs those things in it. So like some products that focus on like enzymes, amino acids, carbohydrates, and stuff like that, if those gaps aren't existing in the soil that you currently have, they're not going to do anything. Right. You know what I mean? But if people don't have those things in their soil, adding them is going to have great benefit. And there's just been a good handful of products where they send me stuff and I try it and it just doesn't do anything. There's no noticeable change at all. And I'm not trying to say that those products don't have value, or that they're not viable or have merit in any way. They just don't serve me in any way in my systems. And so I just don't use them. But you know what I mean? But like I'm like I do like affiliate stuff. I'm sponsored by like Green Grow and like Build a Soil and AC Infinity and Blue Mat Watering System and Royal Gold. They're providing me earthworm castings now. Like Aero Mixer sends me stuff. Who else? Oh, BioAg, hooks me up all the time. Josh from BioAg hooks me up constantly. Him and I have a good relationship. I went down to CannaFest with him and hung out at his booth with him this last year. Yeah. that kind of stuff when I'm doing.
You know, that whole digest aminos and other metabolites products have just exploded in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they really have. I think that the industry is really starting to take a new direction. And I've had this conversation with quite a few people recently, actually. The value of like complete soil systems and every like piece needing to be present in order to biosynthesize like secondary metabolites, right? Like all your aroma compounds, your flavor compounds and so on. Like if there aren't all the cofactors and precursors present to biosynthesize those things, they just simply won't be present in the end flower. And so people are really like, how do we make these components easily available to everyone? You know what I mean? Because it takes quite a bit of like soil knowledge to just do it yourself. So it's like, how do we introduce this to like the common person so that they can integrate it into their gardens and have like really high quality medicine as their end product?
Yeah, it's really interesting that we're talking about this right now, because one of the most powerful missteps is getting a complete panel on your soil and your plant, so you really understand, is this soil high functioning, or am I missing something, whether it be chemistry being the only limitations to biology,
Mm-hmm.
biology being a limitations to uh, what we want to call release of these different nutrients,
Mm-hmm.
vitamins plant available, and is my plant suffering in any way, shape, and form because those two pieces aren't working, right? The geo part of it's easy. Like, as long as you have a blend of sand, silt, and clay and organic matter, you will have the necessary physical pieces to really get a great plant expression. This is one of the reasons why when I talk to people, I'm like, oh, you're growing in pure soilless medium. Well, you really ought to think about adding some sand and some clay and some silt. You don't have to go crazy, but at least enough that that the bacterial species that mine those can be present and
Mm-hmm.
force the genetic expression to be able to be present. And so one of the things that I've been working on with an associate of mine for the last couple of years was a pipeline. So a pipeline is basically a way to filter information. It's directly related to cloud, the paid for version. But once we've input all the different mechanisms for testing, i.e., saturated paste, chemistry, physical properties of the soil, along with plant tissue, plant sap, water inputs, biomakers, so understanding the bacterial and fungi relationship, who's present, who's not, and then some of these other more complicated, like DNA testing, to really drill down on some of the more important, and then also direct microscopy, because right now the DNA labs don't have a real high quality version to determine nematode species, protozoa species. That's really kind of experimental. The real focus has been on bacteria and fungi, which is important. But if you're really looking at the soil food web, you have to have an understanding of, do I have a nutrient cycling system present?
Mm-hmm.
pH, anaerobic conditions, all of these things play into the part. And so the first couple times we ran through this pipeline, like, it did not keep up with my diagnostic. Like, I use experience to say, okay, when I see these things, I highlight these issues or complicated ratios that aren't necessarily picked up by most people. And you do the same thing. That comes with experience. It's not something that it's easy to teach, and it takes a lot of practice to really be able to drill down on that information and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you really start to go out and look at the bigger picture, there are all these relationships between all of them that really get complicated, and to some degree even over my head. Like, this pipeline actually caught some stuff that I did not know, that a high chloride or a toxic chloride can equal the same plant reaction as a potassium deficit, right? The same plant reaction. So you don't know which one it really is until you do, this complete broad panel of testing. Another thing is salts, like not just the chlorides, but the sodium levels. So it's like a double whammy.
Mm-hmm.
So needless to say, working on a project right now on finger limes, which is a really kind of cool version of a lime plant. So they look like fingers, and when you snap them open, they're like caviar. But each one of those little pellets is when the plant is healthy and expressing correctly, it's got this like bittersweet tang to it. Like it's so powerful, it just explodes in your mouth, and it's delicious. But if the plant is going through struggles, it's very sour. Kind of like not good, right? It's not pleasant. And so started working with this client last year in early fall, and I snapped open a finger lime. I'd never seen one. I'd never tried one. And I took some of the little caviar nuggets inside of it and ate it. And I was like, wow, what the heck is this? I mean, the explosion of flavor was insane. And apparently these are popular at high-end restaurants as a garnish or as a additive to like exotic cocktails. And I can see why, because it's a very unique flavor. It's not like anything you've ever had. Now, in order to grow those out here, they have to graft them onto a lemon tree because of the conditions out here, the high salinity, and some of the other factors. That the finger lime itself is a subtropical, likes the shade, so it's an understory plant, and you really can't get the understory or the top story in Southern California because we just don't have that kind of dense, old growth or canopy to protect them. So they graft them on these lemon balls, which the lemon balls do great out here and can support the finger limes above. So needless to say, I just finished a 3-hour session with Craig and Claude today, and it spat out a report that was just insane. Like, it picked up on so many different factors that is a correlation of all of these pieces. And again, it's the future of diagnostics. So
what kind of test is it?
So it's taking all of these tests that I do.
And so like Malic 3, saturated paste, like stuff like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Direct microscopy. It even can convert video. He figured out how to take one of my videos of the orchard and plug it into a special tool that broke it down into information that Cloud could now actually see a picture, which is crazy if you think about it. This is an AI tool.
Right, that's what I was thinking, some kind of like AI diagnostic tool that you're working with.
Yeah, we built from scratch. And so now we can send in video to it and convert it to clips, and then it can zoom in and actually diagnose different symptoms, through plant expression, which, like, this is crazy. Yeah.
So you had just been talking about, you were talking about, like chloride toxicity mimicking potassium deficiency kind of thing. And immediately what I thought of was, the cation exchange sites just being occupied by chloride, you know what I mean? So that the potassium isn't going to be latched onto those negative cation exchange sites. And so it, mimics them because now those sites are occupied by something that the plant isn't using. So it creates multiple deficiencies. And now we're talking about like the Mulder chart, right? Where, different nutrients synergize and antagonize with stuff like that. And I'm curious, like how an AI system can like look at a photo and see deficiencies and really like truly know, unless it has all that other information tied in with it, unless you have that Malic 3, that saturated paste. And then also like, because one of the big problems in living soil is once you have those cation exchange sites oversaturated with things like potassium or sodium or chloride or whatever, so that, your calcium ratios aren't, proper and stuff like that. And then everything starts antagonizing with each other and you get all this kind of cascading issues and stuff like that. Like how do you, remove those potassium, like those potassium ions from those cation exchange sites? How do you remove those chloride? We have like the option of flushing and then like reamending and like using different, forms of nutrient ions and stuff like that to then occupy those sites. but I'm curious, like, how does that AI tool make those determinations based on like images?
So it's because it's a pipeline. So we've taught it how to relate to soil chemistry, Malik 3, modified Morgan, across the board of the different types of tests. Like we plugged in a Haney, we plugged in a Logan Labs, and then on top of that, we plugged in saturated paste. We plugged in physical, so that's the sand silt clay relationship. We plugged in a direct microscopy, so it understands like the relationship of the nutrient cyclers versus the bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
We taught it all of these things.
Cool.
We taught it to how to read Biomakers. So Biomakers is a company, I think you're aware of them. They do DNA testing, but it's not as, I want to say it's more of a diagnostic tool than it is an actual complete representation of who's there. So we've done regular DNA testing with another source who gives you like these pie charts that show you what species and at what relationship to the whole are present in bacteria and also in fungi. So we fed some information on that into it. And then we taught it how to, basically cross compare the present bacteria and plant expressions that Biomakers shows you. So Biomakers took it to another level. They're more of a diagnostic tool for large ag. So basically they can say, based on these groups and families of bacteria, this plant is expressing these problems. It's missing, it's not producing enough enzymes, or these different acids like gibberellic and some of the other, very difficult ones to say. But that's telling you that the microbial community is incapable of helping the plant with the metabolites that it needs to produce those things. But it's really fascinating what they've done, because they've created the pipeline as well. So they don't get sap, they don't get tissue, they don't get any plant material. All they get is soil. But what they can tell you based on microbial communities is this plant is going to struggle, or you're going to have a fungal outbreak, or the potential for an insect infestation is through the roof. Mm-hmm. And it also kind of gives you the understanding of the communities that are more anaerobic versus aerobic, right? So in this case with the limes, the owner had put down a weed fabric, and supposedly the fabric was breathable and would allow water in. In reality, no. It allows a little gas exchange and a little bit of water penetration through it, but it really restricts the ability for soil respiration to occur, which is huge. Like if you can't get oxygen down in and get the CO2 out, you're creating an anaerobic environment. And so this pipeline picked up the fact that, interestingly enough, we now, with the correlation between the Biomakers report and the SAP test, we're now seeing, this makes sense. You're actually fermenting in the soil. You're not creating an aerobic environment, you're creating an anaerobic environment. And so again, like the power of this tool to really be able to take these multiple different tests and go out onto the web. And again, we've fed it a lot of papers over the years, like Cartufis papers on soil organic formation, organic soil formation, right? How do you get carbon in the soil? How do you sink it? What is dissolved organic matter? What is dissolved organic carbon? She's done some amazing work in the last few years on really describing soil formation and how it moves from compacted dirt into a healthy soil that can support the advanced life of a living soil system. So it's just, again, like I just got off spending 3 hours, and when I'm on it with her and Craig, I'm being forced to really think through how to ask this pipeline uh, responsible questions, and in a way that it's not getting skewed. So good in, good out, right? If you're really putting a good question or prompt together, you'll get really good information out. And a lot of times
Yeah.
it catch itself and be like, okay, I didn't think about that. And it's like, that's my job, is I'm the one that thinks about it. Like we're gonna
Right.
we're gonna have these
The,
trees pruned.
the
And when
my
we
my experience with AI is that it's only as competent as the user.
agreed,
You know.
100%. And again, it's not just the large language model, it's the pipeline. It's the ability for it to think through all of these other factors that you've been teaching it for a period of time. So, like, I don't even like to use the word large language model. That the large language models is just a piece of the pipeline. It's the thing that you run through the pipeline, so it knows all these factors and uses it as a filter to help respond to your question. So here's another great one, where when I was there and talking with the owner, I was like, these trees are seriously like overgrown. Like they're too dense in the middle. Like there's no air circulation. And in biomakers, they talked about very, very high potential for a specific type of mold to infect these plants if they're not pruned back properly. Again, I had to tell it that we were going to prune the trees, so it understood when it read the biomakers report. Oh, that's why biomakers flagged that this potential mold plume that's going to happen if you don't do that. And so then I'm like, all right, well, I want to take the Rennial chips or the Rennial wood stalks, feed it through a chipper, and then throw it in a grist mill, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then take that liquid and come back and do an extract, or make an extract and come back and apply it as a way to build the right nutritional panel, as well as the dissolved organic carbon that the soil is starving for. And when I started talking to it, it was like it only understood the wood. And then I was like, no. It has to understand that those branches are going to be fully leafed out. And so we went through that process. And then I was like, oh, shit, I didn't think about something. And Craig was like, what? I go, well, right now, those should have been pruned in January. So right now there's buds, there's flowers, there's fruit on these branches. And that's going to change the chemistry completely because you have all these other inputs. And so when we threw that in there, it was like, oh, damn, yeah, you're going to have way too high sugars. You're going to feed the bacteria. We're trying to get into a more fungally dominant soil profile. And also, the new leaf tissues, a much higher seed-end relationship. The flowers and the buds are going to have pollen as well as more nitrogen. So you're really going to throw your plant into a kind of out of balance, and it's going to show nitrogen deficiency because you're just throwing so much at it. It's already high. And so again, like it catches these things, right? And then I'm like, oh, dude, like Claude doesn't understand when we chip this stuff. It's not like I'm going to get all the liquids and all of the volatile organic compounds. The juice is going to disappear, and it's going to get chipped into the back of a truck, and the truck is going to go up to Peach Hill and dump it on the soil. So within a matter of hours or days, all the volatiles will come out, all the liquids will leach into the soil. So it needs to take that into consideration. And then it came back and went, oh, okay, well, all the concerns from the last 3 questions are kind of voided as long as you wait 3 to 7 days before you take that plant matter and throw it in your grist mill and make your compost kind of extract with it. Luna, this is over the top how powerful this tool is. And I would love it if you have a client that you're working with that is going to do all those panels to give you an opportunity to see the power of this tool. Again, we'll have to prompt it for you because you're not going to want to be tied up sitting there, asking it questions to get you answers back. You just want the information back. but you need to do all the different testing. So you need direct microscopy, you need saturated, the full chemical test, you want a Haney test, you want biomakers test. So the whole panel and sap, leaf, and water test, you're probably talking about $1,000, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a lot of tests.
Yeah. But once you have all that, now you can say, oh, you're missing this amino acid, or oh, you need these metabolites, or oh, you need to add more clay, or whatever you need to do to fix that problem or deficiency. You'll know exactly what it is. It won't be any trial and error. So think about the value of that.
Yeah, for sure. I will see if anyone is interested.
Yeah.
Send me like a link to read about it or check it out or something like that.
So that's the reason I'm explaining it, is because we haven't really figured out how to express it other than.
So this is just like an agent that you've made on like OpenAI?
It's like this is a general contractor, right?
Uh-huh.
It knows what agents to ask what questions, because you don't ask a plumber electrical questions. You don't ask the HVAC guy about plumbing, right? You got to go to the right craft or the right trade to get the important information. So often we'll direct it to the right agent, even though the agent may be a white papers on the computer, or a certain scientist. Check out this guy's work, or check out this woman's work. And so we kind of manage the company, the general contractorship, the general contractor position, so that it does not come back with misinformation. And I think the most important part is that after each session, Craig goes back and makes it double check, triple check, quadruple check, 5 times, and then 6 times check his work. We've actually had to come back on the 6th time and said, oops, I missed this or that. And again, we're prompting it with making sure that it's asking the right trade questions. So it needs to be managed. It's not something that you just flip on and let it go. But no, I think in the future, maybe a year from now, we'll have it so dialed in that it will be able to know which trade to go to, which agent to go to on its own, because we've given it, this foundation, this Biblos, this whole library of information. And it just now knows, okay, I need to pull from here for this piece of information, or pull from there, or that test result, and compare it to this test result to really verify, validate, qualify that this is the correct answer or the correct situation. But now we're talking about biogeochemical, physical properties that, again, I've got a shit ton of experience, and it's now way smarter than I am, because there's just no way I can keep all that information in my head.
Yeah, AI is a good tool to integrate into different research practices, for sure.
Yeah. So enough about that. Let's get back to some of the other things that you're working on. But I just, again, I spent 3 hours on that today, and I've got probably 15 hours in on that one project, and so I'm really excited that we're getting, these results finally from this pipeline to get to that next level of diagnostics.
Yeah, so, that's exciting.
It is. It's really exciting. So tell me more about your seed production. What are you breeding?
So the most recent couple of projects that I've done, one was with my raspberry moon cheese, kind of breeder cut that I had found, and then I did a collaboration with Frank from Purple Caper, and he sent me a whole bunch of genetics that he had in tissue culture that he had been holding on to for a long time. A lot of classic, like old stuff, and some modern, new, like hype things. And we did a breeding project with that. That was just like a regular seed breeding project. And then before that, we did a skunk line breeding project, which was all just like very, very old school stuff. Hey, stop it.
You need a little squirt bottle.
I have a squirt bottle. I got my bad kitty squirt bottle right here. Don't do that. He's not even a year old yet. He's a little monster sometimes. But I love him. He's my baby. We did a skunk breeding project that was all feminized. But coming up, and all those seeds are still available. And then everything's on my website on moongrownbotanicals.com. And then my lunar cheese line, which is all just me, and all that stuff is pretty much like sold out. There's very few inventory left on all of that. And so I need to do another breeding project, which I am doing. I recently went down to California to my old storage unit, and I found a safe full of old genetics that I had just forgot about. Some like really kind of unique things that were very isolated to the specific location where I learned how to cultivate. How long ago was that? A long time ago. Back in like 2013, 2014. And this was in like Concow, California. And there was a lot of like unique, rare things that I'm going to be bringing back. And I found a blue cheese, UK cheese, old project that I had been working on. And I had a whole bunch of different variations of the seed stock. And I'm going to bring that back to the community. As I remember, those genetics were fire. And I'm kind of known for like cheese stuff. I really love cheese stuff. And brought a lot of cheese to the industry. And now this is just like a different variation of cheese, which is just like perfect. Because I had my lunar cheese, which was DJ Short's Blueberry on Kryptonite on UK cheese, but now I just have blue cheese on UK cheese, and it was that same Exodus cut of the UK cheese. And so it'll be like just a different like blue cheese, UK cheese. Stuart, stop it. So I'm excited to do that. I'm going to do that breeding project here. And I'm also going to work those lines onto some other old things that I have. But I'll announce all that stuff in the future. I need to write everything down because I'm going to do, I think, 18 different pollinations of seed stock. And then I'm going to probably provide testers to people, as well as test them myself immediately after I extract and harvest the seeds. And make sure that there's no problems. You know what I mean? Make sure that there's something that I'm proud of that I want to put out into the public. So that's what I got going on.
How are you doing all of those seed projects? Are each one in its own tent, or are you just doing mass pollination?
No, I'll just do big pollination of just different seed crosses and stuff. Stuart, stop it. Hey.
Does he know when he sees that squirt bottle?
Oh yeah, he knows. I didn't have to spray him. I try not to spray him. I think it's cruel, but he could be a little demon sometimes.
Yeah, kids, right?
Yeah, he's just a baby. He's huge. He's only 9 months old and he's massive. But he loves that Victoria's Secret bag.
What type of cat is he?
Orange, you know. He's a boy, he's orange. He's definitely got some Maine Coon in him, but he's always doing something. But he's very sweet at times too. So yeah, doing that breeding project stuff. I've kind of been like pretty mellow on social media lately. I was getting hit like crazy by Instagram for like community standard violations, you know what I mean? Just doing the same thing that I've been doing forever, which is just teaching people how to grow and sharing my recipes and my concoctions and like the science behind the stuff that I like to do. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, actually, it really got bad when I started to tag new sponsors. Like I started to take on sponsorships, because like, like why not? And like everyone, it seems like there's always going to be some people who have a beef with some company. And
he's eating your plants.
Yeah, he does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that climbing jasmine. I'm going to put that in my tent with it, or with my cannabis. I'm curious if there's any effects of the plants growing around like a strong aroma of jasmine,
Okay.
just because of, like the volatilized terpenes of, jasmonic acid, right? And I just want to see if anything happens. I'm not, it's just like a little experiment. And I think it'll just be cool to have like a strong aroma of jasmine inside my grow tent too.
Well, we definitely know that plants in high living soils with a healthy mycorrhizal community will exchange terpenes back and forth and other nutrients. Like for instance, my buddy that grows ghost peppers right next to his tomatoes, and he can make the most amazing spaghetti sauce. It's doesn't burn your mouth, but it has this incredible fire to it.
Interesting. Yeah, from what I understand, it's like the specific profile exuded by the root exudates of that plant that then provide the cofactors necessary to create that like aroma. You know what I mean? And so it's not like it's almost like not like a direct transfer of like flavor or aroma. It's like it sets the conditions in the soil for that plant next to it to then produce those traits as well, right? But my thinking is, how like plants and bacteria that communicate through VOCs, volatile organic compounds, right? And jasmonic acid is like the stress response hormone that like will trigger like aggressive sporadic growth, like which is typically catalyzed by like the mastication of a leaf surface, usually by like animals and stuff in nature. And it kind of tells the plant like, oh my God, you've been eaten, like you need to grow really quickly to survive. And so like that jasmonic acid is like biosynthesized like through the mastication. But also we can introduce it in a bunch of different ways. But the name jasmonic acid, comes from jasmine flowers because it was originally found in jasmine. And so I'm curious if that volatilized aroma in the same tent will stimulate the plant to just grow really, really fast. You know what I mean? Yep. And Stuart seems to like to eat it all the time, but I'm gonna take those 2 climbing jasmine. I'm gonna train them through a trellis net in the soil beds that I have with my plants and just see what happens. I've wanted to do that for a long time, but not this last run, but the run before. I did companion planting with alyssum, which was very like sweet and like had like a strong like floral honey aroma. And it's hard to say, because there was, my whole pot was full of alyssum. It's hard to say if like the aroma itself was so saturated in the tent that it just like transferred onto the buds. But the buds themselves definitely had like a more floral expression when combusted. But that was a lot of fun too. I love doing stuff like that. This most recent time I just did beets as a cover crop. And I was going to document it all on social media, but I kept getting hit and I had my account taken down like 5 times within 2 months. And so I wasn't able to finish documenting that series. And this next time, anyway, my point being, I did just beets, like blood red beets, whatever, the blood beets, whatever, which have like they don't have like large beets, right? But they have like a decent amount of like leaf matter that kind of like expands and covers the surface. And, companion plants, they have like the root exudates, they help, cycle nutrients and stuff like that. They bring in pollinators, yada, yada, yada. And they also create like a mulch layer, like a living mulch layer to keep the soil moist. I found a research paper talking about beets being grown in soil, encouraging higher microbial density as well as a higher diversity of microbes through the prebiotics that they have, like pectins, and just like they're just full of prebiotics. Like beets just have a bunch of prebiotics in them, and like polysaccharides and so on. And so this project, since the beets were pretty small, but they created a nice like shade over the surface of the soil. It kept the surface of the soil very moist consistently without competing for that space, like that surface soil level. And so like the feeder roots were very, very dense and not competing with a companion plant, but still getting a nice like shade coverage from the beets themselves, and it worked out really, 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 really well.
Yeah, microclimate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. As well as, you know, like encouraging better diversity in the soil and stuff like that. And the flower that I pulled it's phenomenal. The aroma and the flavor on this last run that I just did was insane. It was absolutely insane. It was almost like taking a low temp dab when you smoke it.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like not even really a heavy not a heavy like smoker, right? Like typically like I'll smoke at night and relax, but like you know, I couldn't tell you the last time like I wake and baked, you know, or smoked throughout the day. It's always like, okay, my day's over, I've been productive, I'm gonna lay down, I'm gonna turn on the TV and smoke some flower. And this stuff, I find myself wanting to smoke it like earlier and earlier in the day, and then I'll smoke like 2-3 bowls of it because I'm like, oh my god, like this stuff tastes so good, and I just want to keep hitting it, and it just like makes my body feel so relaxed and it feels so good, and I'm like, this weed is phenomenal.
How is the head? Is it expressive or is it sedative?
Sedative. It's sedative. But I've been smoking my skunk line. So I did my skunk grow. I grew Trinity skunk, lunar skunk, Durban skunk, alpha skunk. That's it. And I keep going back to the Durban skunk and the Trinity skunk. And it's just like so loud, tastes so good. You know, and it's that flower where like even after you burn the green, like you keep hitting it, you know, and it's still just, it just changes the profile of the flavor instead of just like being like gross. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
And that was with
it's turned me into a pothead.
That run was with the beets.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. And then I just focused a lot on like top dresses. And I did Malic 3 saturated paste. I did some soil corrections before I did my my cycle. And then I just focused on biology. That's it. I didn't do any nutrient top dresses. I did, in the beginning, I did earthworm castings, insect frost, bukashi. Before I planted, I let everything like break down. I also make sure that I have a diversity of worms. So I use red wigglers, night crawlers, and African night crawlers, I think is what, like the huge ones, whatever. And so from what I understand, the red wigglers like the surface, the night crawlers like kind of the in between, and then like the African night crawlers, they like to go really deep, whatever, to kind of like maximize aeration throughout the entire depth of the soil. I was growing in 150-gallon pots, and so it was like 22 inches of depth of like living soil that I got from Patrick King. He hooked me up. He just sent me like a tote and a half. I was curious to know, like, to see if that like high depth of soil, you know, creating different layers of aerobic conditions, and then, you know, the lower you go, the more anaerobic it becomes, would maximize diversity of biology. You know, you have your more like anaerobic bacteria at the bottom, and then, you know, go up to like your aerobic stuff like that. But it worked super, super, super well. And the plants were huge, and I yielded a lot. I'm not sure how much. Actually, I have a friend coming over to help me trim here in a second. But yeah, the beet thing with just focusing on biology, just did, I think, like 3 different earthworm casting top dresses. And then I used beet juice. I used aloe vera. What's happening? And, and then I hit them very hard with amino acids at the end. With like soy-based aminos at week 7 to really kind of provide all those different amino acid compounds to help biosynthesize all the different aroma, like, you know, volatile organic compounds. So I hit them with like a really strong dose of amino acids and aloe vera at like week 7. And it worked out really, really, really well, which is kind of something that people like would never do. You know, we always hear about like, don't put nitrogen in your soil, like in flour and stuff like that. And I think the conversation really has more to do with like the form of nitrogen that we use.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I just slammed them. The last 2 weeks, I slammed them with amino acids. Like every time that I had the opportunity to hand water, because it's all set up on a Blue Mat irrigation system, I just slammed them with 1400 soy-based amino acids and aloe vera at like full strength. and they just the resin and the aroma is just went through the roof.
So you used your fertigation to do that, or did you just
No, I never put anything but RO water through my fertigation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I only grow with RO water. Just like I'll balance my soils and my soil with like its mineral content, make sure all my trace minerals are on point and everything, and no sodium, no chlorides, whatever. And just I try to like eliminate as many variables as possible, and so reverse osmosis is just like another way to do that for me. Because people are always like, oh, like you need mineral in your water, like it's dead water. It's like, no, but my soil has perfect balance of minerals already, and I don't need to be constantly introducing whatever minerals are in the water. I want it to be perfectly clean. I want to be in complete control of like what the soil has inside of it. And it's a different conversation for like humans. Like you probably don't want to, like humans don't want to be drinking reverse osmosis all the time. But soil is not a human body.
No, it isn't. It's totally
Yeah.
animal. So the aminos, were they bioags?
Yeah, it's all bioag.
Yeah, they're really coming out with some amazing stuff. They're really taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I really like bioags products. I pretty much just use bioag and green grow exclusively, but I haven't used green grow in a while just because I haven't been top dressing. I think I think those products are very useful, but I've been following a different approach lately, where it's just get your soil tested, amend it specifically to get your ratios in line based on like soil mineral balancing theory, and then just rocking mostly water only, focusing on biology, focusing on that microclimate on the surface of the soil, and like using amino acids, really maybe like some trace minerals around like week 5, and that's it.
How about microbials?
So like phosphorus solubilizing microbes. I do remember that I added some of that. But for microbials, I mean, the top dressing of earthworm castings and insect fasts is, you can't be a diversity. You just can't beat the diversity from a top dress like that. With a bottle, in my experience, unless you're specifically after like a specialized microbes, like like a purple dun sulfur, bacteria, like endophytic microbe or something like that, where it likely could be in an earthworm casting, but you just don't know, and you want to make sure that it's there. I've done stuff like that before, like adding Photo Plus to make sure that I had those like Rhodopseudomonas species. But
no compost extracts, no protozoa infusions.
So in my experience, if you're using companion plants, your protozoa population is already there. Okay. Because I've used a microscope for a very long time now, and I've scoped hundreds of soils. I do it for clients, I do it for myself, I do it all the time. And there was just a point where it's like I know that the protozoa is there, because I follow practices that encourage protozoa population, and then I'll scope it, and then there will be protozoa. And I had already introduced a bunch of predatory nematodes, and I introduced like Bavaria bassiana, and like when I scope it, I know that there's protozoa. Like I see the protozoa, and when you have companion plants, you will have protozoa. Like if you're using like living mulches or companion planting with other things, like there will be protozoa in that soil. Yep. So there's been plenty of times where there weren't really favorable conditions, or the soil wasn't ideal, it wasn't mineral balanced, and you're just kind of working with what you have, where it's like, okay, like I need to scope this soil, see what the bacterial density is, see what the living soil food web populations are, and then you tailor a compost tea to introduce those specific species of biology, or whatever, the specific protozoa that you need, or amoebas or whatever, nematodes and so on. But I've done that a lot, but I didn't need to do that this time, because I scoped it and I had the protozoa. And when I had the alyssum cover crop, I had the protozoa. The alyssum, it almost seemed like I had too much protozoa, and so I was really hitting them hard with like bacteria. Like there's so much protozoa, like give them bacteria. But yeah, this last run was just like super simple. I went on vacation like 3 times during it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who'd you have checking on the plants?
My AC Infinity controller and my Blue Mat watering system. It's cool because I can just I can check the environmentals from my phone.
Yep.
And I have it set up. I have a grow tent set up downstairs, with a humidifier in it because it's dry here. It's always super dry. And
Where
then
are
an
you
exhaust fan. I'm in Bend, Oregon. I'm in Central
Oh,
Oregon.
you're back on the West Coast.
Yeah, I've been on the West Coast. I do work for companies back east. Like I do like consulting for companies back east, but I've been on the West Coast my whole life. But yeah, I'm in Central Oregon.
And where were you in Cal?
When I was in Cali, I did projects all over Cali. But I was in Chico for a while. I was in Sacramento. I was in Concow. I was in Paradise, Magalia. I did a lot of work in NorCal, Mendocino area on the coast. I've done stuff in Southern Oregon and Grants Pass and Cave Junction and Apple Valley or the Rogue Valley and yeah, those are pretty much my stomping grounds area.
That's a big arena.
Yeah, I've done projects all over the place. But I've done consulting all over, the United States, Utah and Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, Alabama, Oklahoma, did stuff in Canada. Nevada, Oregon.
Sound a lot like me.
Yeah, doing things all over the place. And I went to Thailand. And
what's going on with that? Did they revoke everybody's license?
I heard that wasn't true. So I it's just I was in Los Angeles. But no, from what I understand, no, they didn't. I'm not sure what went on with that, but I was in Los Angeles. My grandmother had just died not this past January, but the January before. And I was in LA and I didn't really have anything going on at that moment. And I was like, well, I'm near an international airport and I've always wanted to go to Thailand. I got a hotel in Venice Beach and then I bought a ticket to Thailand 5 days later, and I just hung out on Venice Beach and rode my buddy's longboard. I met up with one of my buddies. I took his longboard and I rode around Venice Beach and just hung out on the beach for 5 days and met random people, and then flew to Thailand. I went to Bangkok, and as I was flying to Thailand, I just posted on my story on Loon All Day, and was like, I'm going to be in Thailand. I want to find landrace, organic, living soil cultivators. And tag people that that have landrace out in Thailand that are doing regenerative ag, and a whole bunch of people tagged this woman Prempa V, and I was like, okay, cool. And then a whole bunch of people contacted me and reached out, and it seemed like they were trying to scam me. They were like, oh yeah, send me money and I'll send you seeds, and I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. And people were trying to get me to come tour their indoor facilities, and I was like, no, I'm not going there to come look at NorCal genetics grown in Thailand in an indoor facility. I can go look at facilities anywhere if I want to. I'm coming to go outside in the jungle, in Thailand, and find landrace. You know what I mean? So I reached out to Prempa V and I was like, hey, so I'm coming to Thailand. I'm an organic grower, and she's like, oh yeah, I know who you are. I follow you, and I'm like, oh great, beautiful.
That makes it easy.
And she's like, we're having a landrace tournament between 26 of the landrace farmers out here in the Pupon Mountains, in the whole area. And I was like, are you kidding me? And when? And she's like, these 3 dates. And I'm like, I'm going to be there during those dates. And she's like, come judge the competition. And I was like,
man,
okay. I'm like, cool. I would love to. And I'm by myself. I traveled to Bangkok by myself, hung out in Bangkok, checked out botanical gardens, looked at, a bunch of plant life and stuff, and went to some insect museums and things, and did my soil nerd stuff. Just by myself, walking around, being a soul tourist. And she was like, oh, here's the location of the tournament. And it's on the other side of Thailand. It's a 10-hour drive to this spot. And so I had to get a flight. I got a flight out to the nearest city, and then it was a 3-hour drive into the jungle, from the city. I think it was Sakon Panom something. And so I rent a car, right hand drive, stick shift, never driven on the left side of the road by myself, and don't speak a lick of Thai. I'm by myself, and I go out. It's like rural Thailand, so I'm in a part now where people don't speak English, right?
Yep.
And I land and someone hands me a contract to rent a car. She's just laughing at me. I'm laughing at her. We're both just laughing, and she just points to a signature. The whole thing is in Thai. I'm like, this thing could say anything, and I signed this contract to take this car. And she's like, "What car do you want?" And I picked the most expensive one. She's like, "Oh, it's very expensive." And I did the math, and it was $15 US a day. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And I just drive 3 hours into the jungle of Thailand and northeastern part of Thailand, in the mountains by myself. And by the time I get into this town, it is completely dark. There are no hotels, no franchise hotels or anything like that. I couldn't find anywhere to stay. It was all individual people that just had rooms for rent. But when I called them, none of them spoke English, so I couldn't find a hotel room in this remote part of Thailand. And so I just go to the location of the tournament, and it's a long dirt road, and it's too narrow to drive my car down now. And it the pin was maybe a quarter mile down this dirt road, and I couldn't drive down it. And so I'm oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. I'm crazy. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Thailand by myself, just walking into the darkness, I screenshot my location. I sent it to my parents. I sent it to all my friends. I'm like, if I die, I'm this is the last place I was.
Yeah, come find my body.
Come find me. And I had bought this machete at a market in Bangkok, and so I put this machete on my thigh, and I put all my valuables in my backpack. I put a headlamp on, and I walked down, this dirt road into whatever, and I walked past this hut, and there's a bunch of women making baskets and indigo with a headlamp on in this building that didn't have any walls, and it was all just a thatch roof. And I was okay, I'm just gonna keep walking until I see some indication of weed, you know what I mean? And I keep walking. In the distance, I just hear a bunch of people laughing, and some lanterns hanging and stuff like that. And I see these I think it was 6 or 7 older men smoking out of this huge bamboo bong. And I was okay, I'm gonna go over there. And I walk up to these older men, and they all just stop and look at me, and everyone just gets silent. And I'm hi, Prempavi? And they're yeah. And one of them gets up and goes and grabs Prempavi. She comes back. She doesn't speak English. I'm I'm Luna from Instagram, and she's huh? And she grabs her husband, who's Italian, who speaks some English. And he comes back and he's oh, it's Luna. And then he explains to everyone who I am. And they had promoted my Instagram and images that I had sent them to judge the thing. And so they were all familiar with my account, but they didn't know I was that person. Right. And so he communicates to all of them. They're oh, and they get all excited. And all these men run off and grab all their different weed, and then come back with a bunch of weed and bottles of liquor and stuff. And they're all just giving me rice whiskey and wanting me to smoke all of their landrace. And they bring me steak and food that they had grown from the garden. And I just start eating steak dinner and smoking weed with all these older Thai men. And we can't communicate with each other at all. And we're trying to have conversations, smoking out of this huge bong. It was really fun. And then, the next day they had the tournament. There were a few other things that happened. I went fishing with them and got bit by a fish, and but they had the tournament, and all these different landrace growers brought all their different expressions of landrace, and I got a whole bunch of different landrace from Thailand, and then I met up with these two girls who had been traveling Southeast Asia for the past 13 years, collecting landrace from all over the place, from everywhere in Southeast Asia, and they hooked me up with a whole bunch of like, you know, feral landrace weed, and so now I have like a massive collection of I actually have it right here. I have a massive collection of landrace. Like this is Krongkroya. This is South Laos Pakse. You know, I just got an abundance of landrace Thai weed that I'm probably going to play with at some point. But you know, equatorial genetics are a bit difficult to breed with. But...
Do you think you got any that you can make Thai stick with? You remember that old
so Thai stick is the
you know it.
Yeah, there's a so they don't call it Thai stick in Thailand, right? And I have it. It's the Pupan. It's the yeah, this is it. The Krong Pupan or something. Yeah. Bang Nang Thong.
Wow, that's so cool.
Because Thai stick is from the Pupan Mountains, and that's where I was. But they all call it squirrel tail and tiger tail. In English when they say it to people, but you know, there's an actual Thai name for it. But that's what Thai stick was. And yeah, I have it. So I got it. And that's what I was smoking while I was out there too. And it was definitely an experience, you know, like they're very proud of their like bricking process out there. Like everything, because you can't, you know, it's like 80% humidity at all times, and like their longest days are like 13 hours. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting conditions to be cultivating in. And so everything there is like 24 to 28 week flowering strains. So nothing is ever harvested like when it's truly mature. And none of it ever like fully dries. So they you know, bucket and then brick it, and then it dries in like a brick, but it doesn't ever actually dry. It just kind of like starts to ferment. And a lot of like that unique aroma and like experience is because the cannabis itself has actually started to ferment in a brick.
So it's like hash. They're really kind of like a premature hash.
Kinda. And they were very proud of it. And they were very proud of their weed. But I got wicked sick judging that competition. I got wicked sick from it. Like
because of the food and water, or because you smoked so much weed you got?
I think it's from, no shade on them. They have no infrastructure. They're on a different level of lifestyle. They just have a completely different lifestyle, right? They live in very modest structures, and they have very modest resources, and things like air conditioners, dehumidifiers, lights are not an option. You know, I try to talk to them about like, you know, different natural farming practices like fermenting milk. And they're like, no, we're not going to ferment milk. Like that's for us to drink and it's expensive. And I was like, what if you use like fish bones and like fish heads to like make nitrogen? And they're like, no, like that goes to feed the dogs, you know? I was like, well, you can use rice to collect like microbes. They're like, no, we need to eat the rice, you know? And it's like, well, you can like ferment like fruit and stuff. And it's like, oh, no, like we have to eat the fruit, and like we eat all the fruit. And, you know, so it's like, you know, they pretty much only grow with manures and like rice wash. They grow with like the starch from rice. They grow with cow manure, chicken manure. And like, that's like it. Wait, what were we just talking about though? How did I get on that subject?
We bounced a few different subjects.
Yeah.
But you were talking about judging the competence and you got sick.
Yes. So they don't have the infrastructure to properly dry their flower. It never dries. You know, you're hanging out in 80% humidity at all times. So like the weed never actually dries.
So you think it was molds?
There's bacteria all over it. There's definitely bacteria all over it. And there, you know, I toured quite a few of the farms, and it'd be covered with sticky substances. And I'm like, what is this? You know, like what is on the plant? And it's like, oh, it's you know, cow urine. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know, like nice. And they're asking me about like, you know, like what do you think about this foliar application? And it's, you know, like cow manure in a stagnant, non-aerated bucket, that they're foliaring their plants with and stuff. And like they'll throw rice wash and dirt in a bucket and foliar spray it and stuff, which is like that has its merit in time and place. You shouldn't be doing it in flower. But I got really sick I think it's from the bacteria in the flower.
Yeah. Your biome's not used to that.
No, absolutely not. And I was down for like a month. Like I was stuck in bed cold sweating for like 10 days. I had to get on a steroid inhaler. I got better for a little bit. I got sick again for another 2 weeks. I kept getting on and off, like super sick, couldn't get rid of the cough. And then I was on a steroid inhaler for another month. I was sick for at least a month. And it took me like a full 2 months to recover from it. Like I was
drained.
I was, very, very ill from the adventure, but I have a whole bunch of landrace now. So
was it worth it?
Hey, we'll see. We'll find out. It was a great adventure. I had a lot of fun and I met new people and got to experience different flower in a different part of the world and a different culture, and toured farms and stuff. And they were nice enough to feed me and house me. And, I was very appreciative.
So did you meet anybody that had a ever flowering tree of cannabis? So there was this buddy of mine, Andy, who's on this channel on Wednesdays doing.
I'm familiar with him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he went to a monastery in Thailand, and he sought it out because he's a consumer, mm-hmm. And the monk showed him this tree that just never stops flowering, constantly year round, and I believe he has some of the seeds from it. He has a whole collection, but it's like 30 years.
So I mean, I feel like. So that's going to be like an equatorial landrace, right? You could only do that in an area that has perpetual flowering cycles and is warm year round, right? So I mean, like I feel so like a 28-week flowering strain. The buds keep like stacking. They turn into like really long spears. And that's how it is. Like all the landrace there, it's just all like really long spears that just get longer and longer and longer. And even while they're flowering, they continue to elongate. But their days are no longer than 13 hours, because they're on the equator. So like they're constantly in flowering. And so the plants have adapted so that their veg time is when the plant is not hormonally mature to even flower. You know what I mean? And then they flower for the rest of their life. So if you can have a genetic that is a super long flowering strain, and then you put it on the equator, like, you could probably perpetually harvest that thing forever as long as it doesn't get too cold and die. There's enough nutrients in the soil, and it's tended to. You could probably perpetually harvest it forever. But if you took that genetic and you brought it to North America, you would just have a plant that never finished, never got mature, and then would get cold and die before it did. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that and the humidity, right? So even if you were down in SoCal, you wouldn't have the humidity.
Yeah, exactly. But also, you have longer days, and you don't have that, predominantly flowering photo period year round like they do there. But I believe, I believe that story for sure. Like that seems like something that's definitely possible. And if you just had like a big soil volume, and especially, a group of people like at a monastery that were diligent at caring for it and kept this thing perpetually harvesting and just cut pieces off of it, I absolutely believe that that's a thing, and then that's possible. I don't think you could recreate it in North America.
No. And that's the first thing I thought about was like, well, the humidity would be a problem, and like you said, the photo period. I mean, you could tent it, but it wouldn't get big. It would be a nightmare to control it that way.
You would need it to be open air because it would get huge over time.
All right, so let's move on to. I want to talk some more about your cheeses. So, in my experience, the cheeses that I smoked were very, very powerful. Like I had one that I smoked, 2-3 hits of, which is my normal. I like you. I only smoke at night. I was stoned for like 3 days. like literally, like I could still feel the side effects of it. Is your stuff like that? Crazy long lasting?
Yeah. So I'm not like a super avid smoker, so I can't speak to everyone's like endocannabinoid system. Like I smoke weed regularly, but like I know people that will smoke weed all day long every day. And so to like say that like if I gave them my cheese, it would get them high for days, like I doubt it. But I've actually the past few nights stopped smoking my latest harvest because I would be high and lethargic and have no energy the entire next day. Um, you know, and like I need to get shit done. Like I'm really busy this week, and I was really busy last week. Uh, but it the effects lingered
Was that
for
the skunk or was
24 hours. Does the skunk well? So like a cheese is a phenotype of skunk, right? So like cheese is a skunk one phenotype. So it's like the same family, um, uh, but the lunar skunk is my raspberry moon cheese on alpha skunk. And that was one of them that was doing it, but also the skunks, they were doing it as well. So like, um, but my cheese genetics, the lunar cheese is like that, which is like the closest to like just straight cheese. But when I'm doing this blue cheese UK cheese, that'll be because I keep getting people asking me for like the cheesiest one. And I was keeping on doing like crosses with cheese to like other stuff, but now I'm going to focus strictly on like cheese. Like I'm going to create different variations of like blue cheese, UK cheese, and really like put like cheese out there. Um, and yeah, I expect it'll definitely have that heavy sedating effect. And I'll probably put it on. I'll have it like on skunk variations as well, so like keep it within the same family. Um, but
You know,
yeah,
it's
I get
funny
this
that
going
you
for a long
say.
time.
Yeah, it's funny that you say it's like the same family because in my experience when I was young, oh, I could smoke skunk all day long and not feel the side effects the next day. But
Really interesting.
yeah, but for whatever reason, that cheese I got down in Arizona kicked
Hmm.
my ass. And days is an exaggerate. You know, it was probably 24 hours to 36 hours that I still felt the effects of it. I mean, I was like you, lethargic and slow, and I definitely slept a lot. But yeah, it was just a really, really sedative effect.
Yeah, I found myself taking naps the next day. Like it would be like 2 p.m. and I'm like, why am I so tired? Like, why am I like I have to go to the gym? I was like, no, I'm not gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna take a nap,
Have you seen the latest scientific data on plants having 20 senses?
No.
Oh,
Enlighten me.
yeah, this is deep, man. So we have five senses, and six if you believe in, mother's intuition or ESP or any kind of what do we call it, woo woo sensory. And they have determined now. About a year ago, they were talking maybe 15 senses. Well, there's the latest information is clearly 20, and they can chemically, through volatile organic compounds, sense or send signals to plants in the vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
They also have vibration. They can change their tones. Plants scream when you cut them, but we can't
Mm-hmm.
hear it. It's not a tone that we're capable of hearing. And those are just a few of them.
Yeah, I'd heard about all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. Even like the like harmonic resonance of plants and stuff like that
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, they can
Um,
change their aura, their color, um, depending on what's going on. And, I don't know if you remember back in, conversations on, I think it was Future Cannabis Project. Maybe it was this channel. When we talked about like, being positive and having a high vibration when you're working in your garden, as to, not upset the plants, but encourage it. And Brian had observed that when he'd go into one of these commercial grows and everybody was pissed off because they weren't getting paid enough, and all that bullshit, that the
yeah.
plants didn't look good. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely like I'm sure that so I've heard, of all this, right? I hadn't heard of up to 20 different senses. It's been a very long time since I've had like a really unhealthy plant.
Not surprised.
um and I'm typically like, the plants make me happy, right? Like I'm genuinely passionate about plants and soil. I've known some real big assholes that can grow some pretty good weed though. And I mean, I don't know. Like, so I've heard of so many different devices of like, people will make some kind of tuning device and like harmonic resonance devices and swear up and down that it encourages plant growth and stuff like that. And I think that the plants can sense that stuff, and like, they're living beings and are able to, experience those things. I'm not sure how much really it's going to affect your plants. And I think that oftentimes people get excited about a lot of these, what they believe to be high level concepts that are groundbreaking, before focusing on something like just mineral balancing theory. Right. You know what I mean? And like, I knew a guy who would just constantly be playing classical music at all hours, all days on this farm, and all of his farmers, all of his hands on the farm hated him because he was constantly playing classical music, and now you're just pissing off all the hands. But it's just, I'm skeptic. I'm skeptic of it. Like how much is it really going to do? Like if your plant is unhealthy and you put like, you turn on Mozart and you put a harmonic device there, like how, like, it's not going to recover. Like if a plant has a deficiency or imbalance or it's lacking biology, you're not going to turn on something or find a harmonic resonance and just fix it. You know what I mean? Like I think if your plant is healthy and you want to play with something like that and do side by sides, like, cool, that's sweet. But I've never directed my energy towards something like that, just because I feel like there's just more practical things to direct your energy.
Well, again, you have to have the plant in the optimum range for that type of next level effect. So yeah, you're right. Any kind of deficiency, any kind of stresses ain't going to do nothing.
Right.
If you have the plant in a perfect stasis where it has access to everything it needs, it's in a healthy soil system, it's getting the right amount of water and light, I could see how that could elevate a little bit more to another level. And that's just based on their senses, right? So again, I agree with you, very skeptical, but at the end of the day, if the plant is in a sweet spot, then I can see how that could just enhance it just a little bit more to the next level.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I did a podcast recently with Nick from Rooted Leaf, and he got really big into like the quantum physics of everything, like of plant communication and stuff like that. And like, there's people out there that are definitely really interested in it. I just feel like when you can't create any quantitative data surrounding it because you literally lack the equipment to do so,
yeah,
you're just speculating, which is fine, but then you just can't make claims. You can like put out theory and like speculation and like demonstrate that you're doing an experiment, and that you think that this might happen or you think that it might work, but then you can never make a claim about it. You can be like, I know this about a plant. I know that it has these senses. I know that it responds to different harmonic resonances. I know that it responds to aromas and the presence of other people and stuff like that. But I would be hard pressed to say like it's more important than everything else that comes with growing a healthy plant. Like, I really doubt that if I have perfectly balanced soil and I'm doing everything that a soil needs to be healthy, but I have a bad attitude, that the plants are going to be suffering. I feel almost more like if you have a bad attitude, you're going to be less likely to be diligent and really care to the needs of the plant. and that's what's going to negatively affect them. Like you don't care about paying attention to detail. You don't care about the specific nuances that make a plant healthy, because you're, in a pissy mood.
Or you don't have a relationship with the plant.
Or you don't care. You just don't care. You don't have a relationship with Mother Nature. You don't care about soil. You don't care about the plant. And the plant's, just going to suffer because you're not performing, because you're not on point. You know what I mean? I feel like that's probably more of a connection to it as well. But I mean, who knows? Like, I definitely don't know everything, and there's definitely more to be figured out about everything. And there's definitely something to be said about frequency and resonance and harmony. And who knows? Maybe at some point someone will find the exact combination of the three, and in combination with biology and high functioning soil, they're able to grow a plant instantaneously. Like who knows what the possibilities are when it comes to nature and genetics and like how cells are formed and the rate that they can form.
Yeah, it's a deep conversation, and I think a lot of it stems from knowledge that has been kind of more or less scrubbed, like the Rife machine, some of the ancient plant medicines. That's due to money, right? It's all about money. But I bet you there is more to it than meets the eye. And unfortunately, you're absolutely right about the equipment to do these kinds of testing is not available in field equipment. It's not something you can take out into the field and use. It's got to be done in a laboratory under special conditions. But like recently, they did an experiment with a plant in a dark room with one light, and basically the plant figured out how to survive even though it was in the shadow in a corner, and the light was in the opposite side of the room. So there are some talents that they have that we can't necessarily explain. I don't know if you heard about that one. It was really interesting, but the plant did fine, even though it had no direct sunlight. They did use a grow light, but they had a collar on it, so it only went straight down. It didn't go out. And the plant was in the opposite side of the room in a corner with no direct light. Somehow it continued to grow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm always open to learning new things, and like I never claim to like know everything, but I'm definitely a more science leaning individual when it comes to cultivation.
Yeah, we're good learners. We're not experts. We're just good learners. I think that's been my approach anyway.
Definitely. And not to say those things aren't science. It's just a science that is
it's not fully backed, and it's not repeated.
Right.
You need repetition to really validate it.
Right.
So, all right. So we've talked about your lines. Interesting. I learned a new lesson today about cheese and skunk, and it's funny that you're playing around with skunk. I know we had Kevin Jodry on recently, and
I love Kevin.
Yeah, you too. He talked about just a class A human. He's just real. It's nice to be with real people.
Yeah, definitely.
But he found a skunk seeds in, I think it was Maine, and I believe they're in his hands. He's also working with another farmer who I don't want to bring up because I've talked to him about even coming on the podcast, but he's like, I'm trying to hold a low.
Now I want to know who it is. But anyway, keep going.
I'll tell you as soon as we shut down the live feed. All right.
Okay.
I actually sent him some product, which I should send to you too. All right. So let's talk about this grist mill. So you know what a gizzard and a duck is, right? It's like there's
a gizzard in a duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. The organ. Yes. Yes.
It's where they grind up the seeds. So it's like a pre-digester.
Okay.
So I did an experiment. I built a prototype with a 6-inch pipe, validated the fact that this would work, similar to a way to strip off biology without killing it, along with other plant-based compounds or compost-based compounds. So then I had a buddy of mine weld up a 55-gallon drum and set it on two lawnmower rear ends, with the big fat tires on it.
Okay.
So it tumbles the barrel. And then I had him weld a series of fins on the inside. It's like a cement mixer. So you have one rotation, it's pushing liquid out, and the other rotation is pushing liquid in, right, as it spins.
Yeah. So you're like rinsing it.
Yeah. So it's just a cement mixer, for lack of better words.
Sure.
Just a little bit more fins, a little bit souped up version. And then I threw a bunch of rock in there. And I ran cannabis plants. So I ran at another buddy. I think you probably know him. He goes by the handle Quasimodo. He's out of LA.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I'll tell you his real name when we get done. But anyway, he brought me up some leaf. There was a little bit of bud. There was a little bit of stems for an experiment, because 2 years ago we took a bunch of cannabis in and ran the muncher system to see if it could get rid of the THC, because presently, if it's rejected due to pesticides or expiration date, what the hell is that, right? And it's pre-roll or bud or whatever. They need to destroy it. So right now they're just mixing it with dirt and landfilling it. Mm-hmm. And this company wanted to see if there was a better way to dispose of it and get it below farm bill. And so we ran, bags, garbage bags full of pre-rolls, bud, some extract, some like the black goo when you're making an extract that, when shit goes sideways. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And that whole, 100-acre facility smelled like a Grateful Dead concert. Like everyone was like, holy shit, what are you guys doing? So it volatilized it's just like if you're smoking it, right? It was crazy. And I ran the liquid down to the local lab. I gave them the flour, the pre-roll, and some of the gummies that were rejected, and had them put them together and test the THC content of that. It was like 29. And then we gave them some processed liquid that came out of the muncher. And sure as shit, it hit, 0.03 or no, 0.02 or something. So it was well below the detect level or the farm bill level. And needless to say, I kept the liquid because I thought, wow, I've always talked about feeding plants the plant, right? If you feed the plant what the plant took to grow out of the soil, you're giving it everything right back that it wants, an exact recipe of what it wants. And the muncher process, we know as to really helps plants amazing. It does all kinds of things with maturity, excess growth, excess fruiting, longer flowering. And so I sent that liquid out to Quasimodo, another gentleman in LA, and another friend, Zeus Extractions out in, I think he's in Michigan. Anyway, so one of them never got back to me. Quasi came back and said, wow, my plants just love that stuff. Do you have any more? And I'm like, I think I have a little bit left. So I sent him what I had. And then the gentleman in Michigan came back to me and said, all right, I had this cultivar and it makes this really cool pink hash. And he's a hash maker. And he goes, Leighton, I had the mother, which was in 5-leaf. I had the clone, which was in 3-leaf, and another clone that was in 3-leaf. So each one of the clones, one of them I gave your juice to, and the other I treated like I typically treat with my recipe, my fertility recipe. And he goes, the one that I gave that product to went to 7-leaf before the mother went to 7-leaf.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think you sent me some of this a while ago. Is this something you've been doing isn't this something you've been doing for a while?
Well, I've reinstituted it because I had the ability to get my hands on bulk cannabis. So I don't know if I sent you some of that. I know we talked about it.
Because I remember
I sent you biology.
black.
Yeah, I sent you
It
biology.
was like a green. It was like a green looking liquid. It was in a bottle. I don't know. You were like, here, try this, and you sent it, and then
Maybe I did
and
send
then
you.
you sent me a juicer, like a masticating juicer, like instead of like a bladed juicer, you were like, here, try this with all your juicing stuff, because I was doing a bunch of juicing of things to feed to the soil. You sent me a juicer. Yeah, and then you sent me a bottle of, I think you called it, what did you,
Muncher juice.
Muncher juice. Yeah. I've tried it. You sent it to
So
me.
that might not have been cannabis extracted Muncher juice.
Okay.
That might have been just an extract from the Muncher system with just a general mix of organic matter. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I just recently made this extract. I made it in a liquid and a solid. Originally, the liquids were going to go out. People were going to apply it right away, but then it just got weird, and people were like, "Well, I'm not going to be able to use it right away." So I'm like, "All right, I'll make a solid out of it, because my solids get better over time." And so I still have probably a decent baggie full of it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's like when you microscope it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, wow, this looks good."
Sweet. And, I mean, I'm down to try anything.
Yeah. Do we have cell phone contact, right?
I think so. I mean, God, it's
been a minute.
We've known each other for a minute now. Leighton. Yeah, I got you right here.
Gotcha. All right. So we'll exchange addresses and stuff like that after the podcast. But
you even wished me happy birthday.
I did. I'm sorry.
No, you did. You wished me happy birthday.
Oh, I did. All right.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
It was 2023.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because I had a podcast on this channel for a minute, and yeah, we were working together for a second. I remember.
Yeah, that was. I remember you had a weird potassium deficiency or something with your plants at that time. And
I had just made a brand new soil mix, and yeah, there was like a potassium issue. I just didn't have enough potassium in the soil.
Your plants were thriving.
Yeah, the plants were thriving, but my yield suffered for that first run. But on the second round, we just fixed it. We just added a little langbonite.
Yeah, I was impressed that you hadn't killed the plants based on those levels.
Langbonite and I think fishbone meal. Yeah, I definitely built it to be pretty high. So like that soil mix, which I still have it, I actually moved it from my farm, or some of it anyway. It's in the back. I've been growing veggies in it, and I'm gonna do it again this year. What were we talking about?
The mix and the potassium.
Oh yeah. I built that so it'll be like really low nitrogen, so that I could use amino acids throughout the grow to control like the nitrogen levels. And then like at the time I was like, oh, if I do it like this, then I can pull off of the amino acids and then deplete the nitrogen levels late in flower, kind of thing. As like a, at the time a method I was using to make sure that we didn't have too much nitrogen in during late flower. And now I'm doing the complete opposite, where I'm pounding my plants with nitrogen in late flower. But avoiding any non-amino acid based nitrogen forms.
Aminos is another level. It's just another level, and there's so much more to learn about when to use it, how to use it, and we'll figure it out over time. But are you still using TM7 and humic acid on a regular basis? Or?
I am avoiding TM7s. So first of all, I love bioag products, so don't get me wrong. I stay away from any powdered or any like powdered humates. I try to stay away from powdered humates altogether, just because of the sodium content. For trace minerals now, I'm using their microamino, which is amino acid chelated trace minerals. and so I've moved away from TM7. I haven't used it in a while, and Josh gave me a huge amount, and now it's just sitting in my shop.
Nice.
I have such a you should see my shop. I have such a massive collection of BioAg and Green Grow and stuff. I just have fucking nutrients everywhere, like a huge amount of nutrients. My friend who's helped me trim said she's on her way, so I probably only have like another 15 minutes. But I'm no longer rocking TM7.
All right, let's tear through questions. You got 7 of them, so let's see if we can get through before she shows up.
Okay, and also, guys, put in #biology into the chat, and you have a chance to win Leighton's composting chorus. So #biology to get your chance to win.
And Ken, why don't you skip over any question that's directed toward me, and let's just make sure Luna's questions get answered in case she's got to bounce, and then I can finish and answer the rest.
Cool. I can do that. We're going to start with this one. Is that a grow tent on its side in the background?
Yeah, it definitely is. So there's no plants being cultivated in that. I used an AC Infinity tent and an AC Infinity humidifier, as well as their controller and exhaust fan to create an environment for my red-tailed Colombian boa constrictor.
For what?
That's my snake enclosure.
Red-tailed what?
She's a Colombian red tail. She's a Colombian red tail boa constrictor. She's like 8 feet long. She's huge. I've had her for over a decade. I'm one of those snake girls. Yeah, she's huge. She needed a bigger enclosure, and I was like, I'm gonna turn a grow tent into a enclosure, and I'm sponsored by AC Infinity, so I got a good discount on it. And then like I have the AI controller, so I can keep her environmentals like perfect and the temperature perfect for her. It's like the best snake enclosure ever. It's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who knew?
Right? Using my weed knowledge for my snake. Any products that Luna would recommend to? Yeah, definitely the BioAg stuff is incredible. I do like Green Grow. If you're really, you don't have the knowledge to like do soil mineral balancing stuff through like Malic 3 and saturated paste testing, Green Grow's already formulated top dress stuff is really good just to kind of get you through or to re-amend and start over. I do recommend over periods of time though getting your soil tested. Yeah, those are the two that I really endorse is BioAg and Green Grow. I've tried a whole bunch of different people's stuff, and yeah, that's what I always fall back to. Build a Soil has some great things as well. The horticultural coconut, the aloe vera, are the things that I really like to use, and the craft blend has its time and place for sure. Royal Gold seems to have the best earthworm castings right now, and I say right now because I just feel like everything is constantly changing with the climate and the inconsistency of like harvests and just nature changes. But I went and looked at a whole bunch of different companies, earthworm castings, and Royal Gold has the best ones right now if you're not able to make your own earthworm castings.
Are they fungally dominant?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. But just from looking at them, they're like wet and gooey and like moist, and they're very like squishy, they're not dry, they clump together, they're in like little balls, you can tell like they're fresh and like made from healthy worms, opposed to a lot of other earthworm castings that I've seen from even companies that I really respect that everything's dried out. It's got a lot of peat moss in it. It's, like cut. You can tell it's not real, like high quality earthworm castings.
It's not the real McCoy.
Yeah, it's not. It's just not. They're like imitation earthworm castings, like from a bunch of companies. But yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question: what company sells those tie stick seeds?
I'm about to, and you can message me directly. They're not on my site yet, but I have them. I got a bunch of them. But also, what's her name? Zomia Collective. Zomia Collective does as well. Oh, here comes my friend. Hey, babe, can you hold on just like 5 or 10 minutes? I'm finishing up some questions on a podcast.
Yeah.
I'll be just a second.
No worries. Take your time. Love you.
Okay, love you. I'll be right down. I'll be down in a second.
And then this is your last question. Do you have anything that's not sedative?
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff. I got a bunch of hazes. I'm almost sold out of lemon gruyere cheese. All my hazes. I almost want to bring up my website to like see the full list. Oh, I have my list on my phone. Sorry, I probably sound frantic right now.
Oh, no worries. I just have your website up on the bottom here as well, so you guys can go check out her website and, of course, her Instagram as well.
The Durban skunk isn't very sedative. If you're looking for like a skunk cross, my lemon gruyere cheese was the one that was more sativa leaning from the original Lunar cheese line, and that's all sold out, unfortunately. And then from the raspberry moon cheese line, the raspberry bubble mint is more stimulating. The raspberry haze, the northern moonlight, Hawaiian moon, which is like a Hawaiian crust on my raspberry moon cheese. Yeah, all the hazes. There's Oregonberry haze. There's Silver Moon haze. There's the raspberry haze. Yeah, that's what I would recommend for things that are not sedative.
Awesome. Well, hey, it was great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Leighton.
Glad to hear you're doing well and settled into a new place. And
thanks. Yeah, life's good.
Yeah, stay in touch. Let's not make it 2 years this time. Next time.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks so much. It was good to see you too, Ken.
All right, I'll text you later on today or tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm all done.
So, were there any other questions I need to answer?
Well, let's see here. We got this one. What would an earth box with the plastic mulch cover become that anaerobic environment then if the soil can't breathe?
Yes, and that was the goal to it, was to use anaerobic detoxification to get rid of latent tobacco virus in cannabis, in old cannabis cuts. So I forget the gentleman's name up in Humboldt. It's right on the tip of my tongue. He did a lot of work with labs and working with cattle farmers, and he discovered that for whatever reason, an anaerobic environment somehow got rid of that virus, which was really crippling these older cuts that people had kept on for years and years and years, or not the cuts, but the mother. So they would take a cut from the mother, and it would be expressing the disease or the virus, and he would put them in these earth boxes, and for whatever reason, it scrubbed the virus, and now you had a viable cut that was healthy that you could grow a mother with. So that's where that came from.
Okay, I know Kevin Jodry did some stuff with earth boxes as well, bringing plants back.
Yeah, he did them a long time ago, back in 2018 when we were doing conferences.
Yeah. They're a fantastic thing if you can get your hands on them and learn how to use them properly.
Yeah, there's definitely an art to it.
Yes. And then question, I'm starting a 5-gallon bucket of biochar. I added labs and molasses. Should I add fish brew bold? And when it's covered and soaking water from the 80s this week.
All right, careful with the molasses, man. That stuff, it could go anaerobic super quick. Molasses is a bacterial stimulant and should be used in very, very low doses. I would definitely use fish brew, absolutely 100%. I don't understand about the water. Was that the water temperature that you're adding, or what was that about? But if that biochar smells bad, I almost want to tell you to cook it over or do something to get that molasses out of the cracks and crevices in it, or just I don't know, spread it around on a compost pile, let it do its thing. But yeah, molasses is very dangerous. I use 1 ounce per 20 gallons in an extract, and that's only for 24 hours. After 24 hours, I use it, or you lose it.
Yeah. Well, it's a complex carbohydrate, so you need the right biology to break it down so that it can be used.
Yep. Come on, Cheeto. Come on.
And then non-sulfur.
Yeah.
Is
Blackstrap.
Yeah, the blackstrap is better. Yeah, but
It's
yeah,
critical. It's critical.
Well, like you always say, don't be a moron, right? It's all about the balance. Don't use so much that you become that moron that's putting
Right.
more and more and more, right?
More is not better.
Exactly. The last question I've got right now, what do you think about data centers using up water and contaminating it?
Dude, they're going to be obsolete by 2028. That's in 3 years or 2 years. It's stupid. It's absolutely ridiculously stupid. And they're only doing it because they've got so much money to dump. And as soon as they're done building the things, it's a giant write-off for the owners. And again, it's going to be obsolete. So, I think it's a horrible, horrible use of resources. Just like what they're doing now. I don't know if you've heard, but basically they're releasing wolves and black bears in these huge national forests. And it's not for the reasons you think it is. It's because they're expected to go out beyond the national forests into ranch land and grazing land. And once that species moves into that area, they can grab that land from the owner and declare it as a wildlife sanctuary. So this is a giant land grab from the elite. So just everybody heads up, man. There's a lot of shit going on, a lot of greenwashing going on. The future is very concerning. I mean, fortunately, I focus on the science because it's a beautiful place. What's happening is amazing that we're getting all this information out, and like that pipeline I was talking about. I mean, what a friggin' tool that thing is. It's just amazing. But I don't know, where it's all going to go. I just don't know. Are the robots going to take over? Is it fucking Skynet? We're going to get wiped out, or it's crazy. The whole world's crazy. I'll leave it at that.
Well, and the thing is I hate to say it, but people need to get smacked in the side of the head to start waking up to what's going on. And these are some of the smacks that are needed. And it's happening globally where people are waking up to the elites and what they're doing. And things are going to change, whether it's going to be, good for us or not. Only time's going to tell. But I think, I think it's going to go our way eventually, because there's very few of them and a whole hell of a lot of us little guys that are out here, trying to fix things. But if you guys haven't put up the hashtag biology, we're going to be doing the draw here right away. But as for the data centers, and I had somebody, giving me a hard time. I've been putting out clips, and I've been using AI generated pictures for thumbnails. They're giving me a hard time about, I'm using this AI that's destroying things. I think there's a lot more to everybody getting on their cell phones and watching YouTube videos that are 100% generated through AI that are causing a lot of more problems than anything that I would ever do. But everybody has their own opinions on all of it. So I don't know, like you're creating an AI system, Leighton, using Claude. And it's something that's needed, but you're going to have people that are going, oh my God, you're destroying the planet because you're doing it.
So again, we're creating a library, a bedlos of all of this information, and it's in the form of a pipeline. So what we do is we fire Claude up, run them through the pipeline, and then start asking questions. So it's using all of that information that we created. It's shut off when we're done with those series of questions. It's shut off and the library's closed. so that it doesn't get corrupted in any way, shape, or form. So we're only using cloud for a brief period of time. Today was lengthy. Today, I'll be honest with you, we were on the phone with Claude for about 2.5 to 3 hours. But we're doing some final touches on tweaking the questions and the prompts to get this next level of information, which was very powerful to say the least. So I'm really excited about it as a tool for the future because it cuts my time in a tenth for what I could do with calculating all of this information, cross-referencing all these test results, and then try to come up with a mathematical formula for how much of a product to apply on this individual condition. Like all my other records, all of my other test results, and all my other formulations aren't valid anymore because this is a different system. So it's a nightmare. Each individual case is individual. Sometimes in one property, I can get 4 or 5 zones that are different. So the power of this thing is going to be like huge in saving me hours and hours and hours, and sometimes not billable hours, to be honest with you, because not everybody can afford the level of time that it takes to, not let alone the test. Like you saw Luna kind of go, whoa, wow, that's expensive. Yeah. It's $1,000, but if you're doing a very large scale project or a very high end ranch or landscape or something, $1,000 is nothing. So,
well, I think it's going to be specific to each person. If you're a large farmer, and you want to switch over, you're going to want to use something like that because it makes it so much easier to do. And considering like a combine's, $750,000, 1,000 here and there for testing is nothing.
Yep, exactly. Well, it looks like we get off early today. The boys will be happy about that. Can you see his little face looking at me like, when are we going? When are we going, Bob? When are we going?
Well, let's do the draw. So, guys, we're going to do the draw for Leighton's chorus. And whoever wins, you have to send an email to it'sallaboutthebiology@gmail.com. And I'll set you up with Perky to get your chorus. But here we go. And we'll see who's going to win on today. There we go.
Congratulations, brother.
Uncle Lad OD Grow, you are the winner. So send your email to it'sallaboutthebiology@gmail.com. It's in the description as well. And I think I have it in my list here. Just
and remember, if you're west of the Great Divide, make sure you keep an eye on that moisture. Because it's just too dry out here. If you're east, you don't have an issue. You got plenty of humidity and plenty of rain. Well, I shouldn't say plenty of rain. Everything's out of whack. So just keep an eye on the moisture level.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we're always recommending that you mulch, because that's going to help you keep that moisture where it's supposed to be in your soil, close to your roots, and going from there. But for next week, next Monday, we have Will Spencer coming back on. He's the creator of oh my gosh, Soil Saviors and Cell Saviors.
Yep.
And he is a human. I know there's a specific term for it, but for your human health, send him a picture. He can tell you what's missing in your body. So he's a great person to ask questions of, and he's on next week. And then after that, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but what's the company? Oh my goodness gracious. The things that I should have had on the top of my head.
That's right. You'll remember by next week.
Terraganics. Terraganics. They're coming on in 2 weeks.
Got you.
Okay, guys. Thank you for being here. I love our chat. You guys were bouncing today. Anybody that hasn't been on our channel, please subscribe. If you have the ability, join the channel, help support us by clicking the join button and donating. And remember our winner to send me that email so I can get you set up for taking Leighton's course as well. Leighton, any last words, brother?
Yeah, thank you, brother, for putting this on every week and getting all these guests lined up. Really appreciate the extra effort that you put behind the scenes. So, again, thank you very much, and I'll see you next Monday, brother.
You betcha. Okay, guys, take care. We will see you on Wednesday with me and Andy if he's feeling okay.